It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. You can find me at Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting through my website, emailrevealer.com. We have today a very difficult show, okay? It's about the death of this young 22-year-old girl named Taylor Anne McAllister, and this happened down here in Florida, in Tarpon Springs, Florida. And we have with us today her parents, Leslie McAllister and Bill McCallister. Now, if you want to look this up, you can just Google Taylor Anne McAllister. But there's also a hashtag Justice for Taylor 22. Beautiful young girl. A tragic story. And we got no justice in this case whatsoever. So we have Bill McCallister.
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Bill, thank you so much for coming on the show. You have my condolences. You know, I'm the father of a 20-year-old daughter myself. So I can't even imagine what hell you've been through, you and your lovely wife there. Tell us about yourself. Who is Bill McCallister?
I'm just a 46-year-old average father of five. Taylor was our second oldest. I'm born and raised in Florida from the East Coast originally, and we moved over here back in 2006. Small business owner, and just a father fighting for justice for his daughter who was murdered.
And Leslie McAllister, are you there?
I am here.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. You have my prayers and condolences. I'm so sorry for what you've been through. Can you tell the audience about yourself? Who is Leslie
Sure.
McAllister?
I am a 44-year-old mother of 5 children, 2 grandchildren, twin daughters of Taylor's daughters, Charlie and Madison. I've spent 20 years myself as a civil service. I've been a paramedic for 20 years. So this is very, very difficult to see things through your career, and then you have your daughter murdered and found the way she was is just devastating, absolutely devastating.
I can't imagine. Taylor was a beautiful girl. These pictures, a gorgeous kid, so young. What would you want the world to know about Taylor Anne McAllister, her life?
Taylor was just a beautiful old soul. She loved everybody, and everybody that ever met her instantly fell in love with her. She had this unbelievable way of just making any situation better. Our family is kind of a jokey, sarcastic type family, and Taylor could run and compete with the best of them on that. Very quick-witted. She had a heart of gold. She could not ever stand to see anybody suffering. If she could help in any possible way, she's always done that since she was little. Throughout high school, she would have friends that were going through a difficult time stay with us. She could quote any movie that you can think of. She just, when people use that phrase, that person lit up a room. That truly was Taylor. She had this way about her that just drew people in. And even the people that didn't know her, that have become familiar with her case, have told us, we feel like we just know her. I can't explain it. We feel like we've known her all of our life. She was a loving mother to her twin girls. She had a huge passion for music. She taught herself to play the guitar at 14, and she just took off with that. She would spend hours learning new songs, singing new songs. She would write songs herself. She just a beautiful person all the way around.
Yeah, people can go to the Facebook page, Leslie Bill McCallister, and they got YouTube videos up there, pictures of this beautiful kid. And they need your support, too. And they could probably even use some people to come help them out, make some kind of... You have a couple of groups but maybe some more social media assistance with their work here. Now, what happened with Taylor Anne McCallister? How did she come into contact with these people, ultimately, that are responsible for what happened to her?
Well, around 18, Taylor started what would be considered experimenting with pills. She wasn't living with us at the time. Taylor was very impulsive, and she would get an idea in her head and just kind of run with it. She was very naive. She wasn't street savvy by any stretch. So she was very trusting towards people, and she got involved with some people around 18 where she started taking pills. And one of the things with Taylor is she was extremely honest with us. So she reached out to us and said, "Hey, I need to come back home. I'm getting involved in pills and I'm getting scared." So we moved her back home. She met an individual. She started working at a Japanese restaurant as a hostess and waitress, and she met her, what would become her husband, at the restaurant, and they started dating. And about 3 months in, maybe 4 months in, they got married. He was getting ready to go into the Coast Guard and be sent out to Seattle. They moved out there shortly thereafter, and he was also struggling with addiction. Taylor had told us he got her into some harder drugs. And when they were out in Seattle, she got pregnant, and he was going what they call underway. I guess it's like a Coast Guard deployment. So we moved her back home. She wasn't using drugs. We took her to all of her doctor's appointments. Leslie and I both were always there. She was always drug tested, always tested negative, and there was never any red flags that she was, had any addiction issues or anything along those lines. After she gave birth to the girls, she gave birth via C-section. She's a very little, tiny girl, and she was prescribed Percocet. And that was the first red flag because she went through them very rapidly, and we knew that there was an issue there. After that happened, her drug use kind of continued to spiral just deeper and deeper. She got into the more of the harder drugs, the IV drugs. We had tried everything possible. We've taken her to detox centers, put her in rehabs. We've done the tough love. We've done everything that everybody that we spoke with that dealt with addiction told us to do. She did lose temporary custody of her girls because of her drug use, and that led her into meeting some very bad people who got her into some things that she had no idea what she was doing. And there's a website that probably everybody's familiar. It's called Backpage. It's basically a prostitution website or site, whatever. And some of the girl who got her involved in that told her that it was just basically modeling swimsuits and you would get paid. And again, Taylor being naive and could pretty much be easily manipulated. That's what happened. And that turned into where this girl introduced her to Robert Butler. He was a 51-year-old man at the time of Taylor's murder, and he instantly became obsessed with her, was very controlling, was supplying her with endless amounts of drugs, money, and clothing. He moved her into his house. This was October of 2016. Taylor had moved out of our house in August of 2016, met him and moved in with him. And he was living in a house in Palm Harbor, Florida, where Taylor was staying with him at that home. He also had a live-in drug dealer, so it was, just easy for him to use and take advantage of her situation.
Yeah, if you've never had a loved one who gets caught up in those opiate addictions, you just don't know what it's like. You're watching somebody just throw their life away, and it's overwhelming in your entire life. I've talked about on the air, different people. I had a girl detoxing in my apartment a couple of years back. We couldn't get into treatment for days. Now, so Robert Butler was What's his background?
Comes from a lot of money. His family owns a string of businesses in this Tampa Bay area, and he pretty much just sucks off his dad's money. He was involved in that business, and they supported him financially by his own admission, and a lengthy criminal history, pretty much everywhere. Violent criminal history. He's got domestic violence charges, false imprisonment charges. We've spoken to his ex-wife, who has said he's got an unbelievably violent temper. He's been extremely physical with her during their relationship. He's basically just a worthless coward.
Yeah, incredibly lengthy criminal record. I was looking at this stuff here because he was a felon. Related to these charges, he was facing the felon possession of ammunition and stuff like that. So he had a felony in the past, and then he seemed to have done more time on money laundering charges rather than the charges related to your daughter.
Yeah, so it was pretty disgusting to see how the judicial system operates. As it stems from, Taylor's homicide. The only charges anybody faced and were convicted of were a misdemeanor of failure to report a death. When they made those arrests on Butler, or that arrest on Butler, he was also charged with the one you mentioned, possession of ammunition by a felon. That was the day that they arrested him. They found the ammunition in his room, and he admitted it post Miranda that it was his. But the state attorney's office dropped that charge. The other charge was a felony possession of marijuana that they ran concurrent with the misdemeanor failure to report a death. They drug that misdemeanor charge out for about a year because he was also facing money laundering charges on federal money laundering charges. So if he would have been convicted on the failure to report a death charge, it would have added more time to his federal. He took a plea deal in that case. So it's just a way that these criminals manipulate the system. And Butler basically gets a slap on the wrist and he pays a fine, and he can easily do that. He's had multiple DUIs, 3 or 4 DUIs. Like I said, he's somebody who serves absolutely no purpose in society. He took advantage of Taylor, and this is our system.
What happened that day?
Well, the day that Taylor was found in the alleyway in South St. Petersburg, Florida, the night before, Butler claims that Taylor was, by his own words, she was sick and needed to go to the hospital. She was, instead of calling 911, he called his live-in drug dealer, and who was with 3 other people at the time down in South St. Pete, over 27 miles away from Butler's Palm Harbor home. He told him she was sick and needed to go to the hospital, and they told him to call 911. He refused to do it. He didn't want to call 911 because he had drugs and guns in the house and was scared that he was going to be arrested or the cops were going to find it and charge him with, a plethora of charges. When they arrived there, Taylor was naked in his bed. She had urinated on herself. She was not speaking. She was only moaning in severe pain, is what they told police. They were not expecting that, what they saw. And they said Butler began acting kind of strange, like something had happened, is what one of the individuals said in their interview. They again said, call 911. He refused to do it and just said, take her to the hospital, get her out of here. They loaded her up in the truck, and the individual that drove off with her didn't know the area very well. So he drove by, I think it was 7 hospitals in this area. He saw some police around one of the hospitals, panicked, and as he was driving, he claims that Taylor fell over in the backseat of the truck and died. He smelled an odor and thought that she had defecated, and so he called Deontay Baker, who was kind of trailing in another car, And they pulled over, checked her pulse, determined she was dead, and an argument ensued about what they should do with her. One of the stories they said was that they were going to put her in a place she would have never been found. They didn't do that, thankfully, and they decided to put her in that alleyway. So they drove down to the alleyway. They had called Butler and told him that they were going to bring her back to his house initially, and he said, "No, you're not bringing her back here. Just take care of it." So they drove down to that alleyway, threw her out of the truck, and drove over her body as they left the scene. They drove back to Butler's residence in Palm Harbor. One of the individuals went and got lighter fluid. They burned all of their clothing that they had on. They burned some of Taylor's clothing. They put some of Taylor's belongings in garbage bags. They destroyed the video surveillance inside the house, and they took and discarded some of her belongings in different apartment complex dumpsters so they wouldn't be found. The following day, they had the house thoroughly cleaned. They had the truck professionally detailed. They discarded the mattress and carried on with their life as if nothing ever had happened. Her cause of death was ruled by the medical examiner a homicide by asphyxiation by the hands of another. And Robert Butler's DNA was the only one found on her neck and under her fingernails. The day that they questioned him, he had fresh scratches to his face, the bridge of his nose, his arms, fresh bruising. He's the only one who requested an attorney when they were questioning him. Everybody else that was involved, none of their DNA was found on Taylor.
How did the police know to contact Butler, that they had a connection between the two? People were aware of their relationship?
Taylor had left our home, like Bill said, in August of 2016. And she left with her husband. We were unaware that her husband had come home to his parents' house to get clean. So we thought Taylor was out, couch surfing with her husband and living in cars. We had not heard from her since September. So on December 22nd, when we were advised that Taylor was found deceased, we had no idea where she was living, who she was with. We thought she was with her husband. As the investigation went on, or during that first week of the investigation, we were told, or we would be the first time that we heard the name Robert Butler. So we started looking him up, kind of figuring out who he was. He was 51 and Taylor was 22. So the reason that the PD went to talk to Robert Butler that day is they talked to Taylor's husband, Josh, and he told the police that is where Taylor was residing. So that is the reason that the cops talked to Robert Butler that day.
And how did they find the other two guys who were driving around with your daughter?
We're assuming that Robert Butler told them about everybody else that was involved, because the police had told us they said, so then, we the day that this happened, or the day that she was found, they told us that we know all the people involved. We've already spoken to them. All their stories matched up, and this is looking like just an overdose, is what they told us. Yeah, that's really what they said. Yep. Really? And they stressed the importance of the medical examiner's ruling. They said, what he determines as the cause and the manner of death is the most crucial in this investigation. It's going to determine which way we go, but everything is showing overdose. There were even officers on scene going around calling her a junkie whore who OD'd. They treated her with just disgusting. I mean, as if she was just worthless to them. And when the medical examiner's findings and ruling came back, February 6th of 2017, and it was determined a homicide by asphyxiation, the St. Petersburg police pretty much just panicked, and they knew that they had messed up the investigation from the beginning. and they started criticizing the medical examiner, saying he didn't know what he was doing. He didn't know his ruling should have been ruled undetermined. He took too long. This should have never been ruled a homicide. I don't know why they felt they had more knowledge than a doctor. And we have since found out that this medical examiner is one of the most thorough doctors at this the medical examiner's office here in Pinellas. We've spoken to him directly, and he said, there's no doubt this is a homicide. Somebody did this to her. The injuries that she sustained to her neck, her face, her mouth, her chest, they said those are caused by somebody. Somebody did this to her.
And Butler had scratches on him.
Yes, the day that they spoke to him, he had, or the day that they found Taylor, when they spoke to him, he had fresh scratches to his face. It's noted in the police report.
There was something in one of these news articles I read that said they didn't have enough to get a search warrant initially. That doesn't sound right.
And it doesn't sound right to us either, because Major Shannon Halstead is the one who was overseeing this case. She gave us 3 different answers. We asked, because that's one of the biggest issues we have with this, is why wasn't a search warrant issued if they went on TV saying that they're treating this as a homicide. So one answer, she said that they didn't feel that they had enough. The second time, she said we didn't feel that there was a reason to. And then the third time, which is the most concerning, is she said they tried to get a search warrant, but the prosecutor, Scott Rosenwasser, who was also involved in this case with them from the beginning, refused to take that search warrant to a judge. So the warrant that was finally issued on the residence and the truck was almost a year later to the date that she was found murdered.
Oh my God.
There's nothing going to be left in the house. Everything was gone. And then when we had a meeting with the upper administration at St. Petersburg Police Department, we were told the warrant wasn't even for Taylor's homicide investigation. It was for federal charges. Nobody can produce that warrant. We've requested it. We've reached out to the clerk of courts. We've reached out to the state attorney, Bernie McCabe. We've reached out to St. Pete. Nobody can provide that warrant to us. There's things that have been lost in this case. There's been audio recordings. There's been pictures that they told us they had that they can't produce. They claim technical difficulties. It's just horrible the way that this investigation has been conducted.
All right. Now, what about the political influence of this Mr. Butler? Did he have like a very high-priced lawyer that's really juiced in this town?
Yes. His defense attorney, who's basically what we've been told is his fixer attorney, he's on speed dial for Butler, is Kevin Hazlett. He's a former prosecutor in this area, Pinellas County, turned defense attorney. His primary practice is DUIs. He's represented Butler quite a few times. He represented Butler on this case. That prosecutor who I just mentioned, Scott Rosenwasser, is friends with Kevin Hazlett. Everybody knows Kevin Hazlett. He's very well known in this area. He's your typical defense attorney, and all that implies. So the chief of police, Anthony Holloway of St. Petersburg Police, was actually caught with Kevin Hazlett during the middle of this homicide investigation. I believe it was July of 2017. He went to it was like basically a PR event, and Holloway standing right next to him. It was plastered all over the newspaper. So it definitely causes some concern, and you got to wonder, because of the amount of money Butler has, what connections he also has. A private investigator we spoke with said Butler's defense attorneys, both on the federal and state charges, have connections in the system. They know people, and his words were, if you think deals aren't being cut behind closed doors, you're a fool.
How did you get charges against Butler and arrests? Who was putting pressure on your end of things? Just yourself and your wife?
Well, Leslie and I mean, these are the charges. We were having a meeting with the chief of police the day that they were interviewing and made these arrests back in December of 2017. The police pretty much cut us off with all contact about midway through the investigation, Leslie and I started to do an investigation of our own, and we were finding out names that they didn't even know were involved, that we were finding out are people that Taylor was affiliated with and hanging around with. And when we started asking deeper and deeper questions, and the officers and the lead detective who was assigned to this case couldn't answer those questions, and they started giving conflicting answers and different answers you would ask one, the same question, they'd give you a different answer. That's when they decided to say, hey, listen, we're just going to cut this family off and not talk to them anymore. So we didn't know what the charges were. We were expecting somebody to be charged in her homicide, and were just disgusted when it was a misdemeanor of a failure to report a death.
And what is the nature of this money laundering?
Well, that stemmed from Taylor's homicide investigation. Basically, Robert Butler was paying his live-in drug dealer, Deontay Baker, checks for drugs. And it was totaled right around $600,000 is what the feds told us.
Whoa.
In court, they had checks totaling around $460,000 or $480,000. It was just under $500,000. So that's where the money laundering came, because he was also writing them to couple of Deontay Baker's girlfriends, where they were trying to conceal the money, and that's where the charges basically came from. And then Deontay Baker was charged with possession of drugs and trafficking in drugs, I believe, on the federal side of things. But it all stemmed from Taylor's investigation.
And how much time did those guys get?
On the failure to report a death, there were 5 people involved with Taylor's homicide. One of the 5 they haven't even spoken with. They never even talked to him. So 3 of the 5 got charged with failure to report a death. One served 4 months. One served a little over a year. Baker served a little over a year, but that was also because he was on a federal hold by the U.S. Marshal. And Butler served 8 months of a year sentence on that. And Butler's currently in federal prison until September of 2021 on the money laundering charges. He was, we were guaranteed he was going to get 12 to 14 years by the federal agent. He ended up getting 40 months, and then he agreed to basically cooperate with law enforcement and what would be considered turning snitch, I guess. And that got dropped down to 27 months. So that's where he's at now.
So, Mr. McCallister, you were telling us about the family here of this Butler. There's some controversy, too, with him and his sister over this heirs to this fortune of this furniture, this chain store?
Yes, that's to our understanding there is. Or there was.
Okay, and there's another body attached to the sister? Yes.
His sister, Robin Lee Farley, back in 2006, delivered a baby at her house, and a friend called to report that. When EMS and police arrived, according to the news article, the baby was deceased. It was found in a dresser drawer. She was initially charged with, I believe, a second-degree murder, and which was later reduced to manslaughter, and I think she was just placed on probation, house arrest. Incredible. Yes, the medical examiner in that determined that the baby was born alive, too.
Incredible. Now, was this the same attorney that was Mr. Butler's
we do not know.
Okay. Now, what about, do you have a civil suit pending in this?
Yes.
Okay. And that would be against Butler?
A wrongful death lawsuit was filed against 3 of the individuals, yes.
Okay. And how's that proceeding?
It was amicably resolved, is I guess the best way that we were told to word it.
I got you. Okay. Well, that's good. Now, what else do you want us to know about this case here that you haven't told us already?
The investigating agency, St. Petersburg Police Department, anybody in this area pretty much knows that they're known for handling cases in this manner. They have pretty much covered up a botched and horrible investigation. We've been lied to repeatedly. We've been given conflicting answers. We've been cut off. They had a lead detective that was investigating this that did not even know that DNA was found in the case until we actually found it in the police report and had to send him a picture of it. The incompetence of these officers is unbelievable. I mean, it's almost like a very bad movie. There's allegations of corruption by the state attorney's office, by the prosecutor. There's plenty of finger pointing on who's to blame in all of this. Everybody that's reviewed Taylor's case, we've had, attorneys, we've had law enforcement, other law enforcement, we've had, private investigator, we've had, forensics. Everybody that looks at this says there's something going on here. There's cover up. So how in the world nobody has been charged in this with all the evidence is mind blowing. It's just a complete disgust that we feel towards the police department on how they handled this and how they victim shamed Taylor in the media. They have treated our family horribly. They've treated Taylor horribly, and it's just a gross injustice across the board.
Has there been any kind of internal investigation into all this misbehavior and incompetence?
The last meeting we had with Chief Holloway, he asked if we wanted to file an internal affairs complaint because there were clear violations of policies. We told him yes, and he said, okay, that's fine. It's going to come to me anyways, and I'm going to be the one who determines what happens with it. So when we spoke to the internal affairs division, the lady that I spoke with said, unfortunately, we don't really see any policy violations, so there's really not much we can do. And in this same meeting, Chief Holloway walked over to me at the end of the meeting and he said, just like you keep saying you're going to protect and look out for your daughter, well, I'm going to protect my people too.
Wow.
Now, this is the same chief that just 2 years ago, I believe it was 2 years ago, 2018, was caught. This is a news article. Anybody can look this up, where there was 49 officers fraudulently committing overtime, charging overtime to the city. And he didn't do anything with it. He didn't have it investigated until apparently a judge had to intervene and tell him this has to be investigated. He's known for being corrupt. Back into his days as a Clearwater chief of police, and it just carried over to where he's at now. And that this is the St. Pete Police Department's way. I mean, this is what they're known for. And as soon as we found out that they were the ones investigating it, we knew it was going to be bad. We knew the end result was going to be bad and not what needed to be done.
Now, I'm new down here. Is this police commissioner, is this an appointed position or an elected position?
It's appointed.
Yes, appointed. His is appointed.
It's appointed. Okay. And have you gone to it? Who would appoint him then?
Yes,
the mayor then, right?
Rick Kreisman. He's another individual who's fully aware of this. He will not address it. He's your typical, what I refer to as your typical hot air politician who just, he posts on Facebook anything that's going to make himself look good. We have reached out and commented on his Facebook. He's been emailed multiple times. He's fully aware of all of this. He will not only not contact us back, he refuses to meet with us and refuses to address any of this.
I got to tell you, you guys are the parents of a beautiful young girl. If this hits national media attention, this is really going to explode. This would make for quite a TV show. What do you want the public to do? Well, first, let me ask you this first. Now you're speaking out against the local police and the mayor. Has there been any repercussions against you now for speaking out?
No, I mean, I think it probably goes without saying they can't stand us. We are extremely vocal.
Yeah.
We're not going away. What they're trying to do basically is just, I guess, sweat us out, make us stop. I guess they feel ignoring us is what's going to be the best way to do that. Unfortunately for them, what they don't realize is Taylor's case has picked up a ton of exposure. Once we posted the crime scenes on our Facebook, and for the people listening, our Facebook is set to public for this very reason. We're determined to get justice for her. Once those crime scene photos got posted, which were the absolute last thing in the world we wanted to do, the outrage that it sparked, everybody knows seeing something is far more powerful than reading about it. And that's exactly what happened. So we do, and we are hopeful that a national media outlet will pick this up. We just feel it's a matter of time.
And there's a YouTube channel as well, too, called the Bluestone Society. Is that the ones who are
well,
put the video out?
There's multiple. A lot of people, once they heard about Taylor's case, a lot of these people
Right.
we don't even know. We've never met them. They're just outraged. And so they started putting together videos and writing articles, and just doing group pages and Facebook and all kinds of different things, basically just to get her case more exposure. But we have seen the Bluestone one, the Bluestone Society that you speak of. We've seen most of them because you can just Google her name and they'll pop up. But so many people are just desperately trying to help, get justice for her. But many of them, they're just kind of doing it on their own. And a lot of times people will just share them with us and we didn't even know about it.
Right. The Facebook page is Leslie Bill McCallister. You can find it that way. And the hashtag, which is how I found you, is Justice for Taylor 22. Now, have you thought about writing a book about this? Because then you can get some little more national exposure and do radio interviews and stuff like that.
We have. That's been proposed to us. A lot of people that are, when we wake up in the morning, because as I had told you earlier, we're not social media type people. We're just a family trying to get justice for a daughter. We're a normal, everyday, average middle class family that does what everybody else does, and we're willing to do and go down any avenue that will get her justice and get her case the exposure to get that justice. So, yeah, we're open to that. We're open to doing just about anything that any shows, any interviews, last minute podcasts, whatever it is, to make that happen.
Now, this is all so fresh. This just happened, and you've been through hell now with the year-long fight with the cops and the DA's office and the mayor. All this. How do you guys cope with this, and how does the rest of the family cope with this? Is it still as painful today as it was the first day?
Well, we're pushing into 4 years in December. And to answer your question, yes, the pain never goes away. You're going to break me, man. We're devastated. We're just, we've, it's affected our life in ways you can't even put into words. Taylor was extremely close to her younger sisters. They have been crushed. They adored her. I have my teenage daughter, and she'll call us and text us from the bathroom stall in school crying her eyes out because she just has one of those days. Our youngest, she watches Taylor's YouTube memorial video nonstop. You'll go into her room and she's crying her eyes out just watching it. There's a memory anywhere you go of Taylor because she was such a family homebody type person that she just loved to be around us. And it doesn't matter what you do, there's something tied to Taylor. We were always on the boat. We were always going to the beach and Disney and all those things that every family does. And, it's completely destroyed us. you can't put it into words what the feeling is. It's horrific.
It's a tragedy. This is a tragedy, and have you tried to get like therapy and a church, what kind of avenues have you taken to heal from this?
When it first happened, we went to therapy. Our younger kids, they didn't really want any part of that, so we don't want to force that upon them. If they ever feel that they, want to go, we certainly would do that. We're a very tight, close family. Leslie and I have been together for over 26 years now. And I think the love and respect that we have for one another, and the close group of friends that we have, on top of all of these people supporting us, it's such a huge help for us just to keep fighting and keep pushing forward. I'm not going to sit here and say that you don't have bad days where you just are all like curled up in a ball, laying in bed all day. You just losing a child. Yeah. You just can't. There's nothing worse that can happen to a parent in life. Absolutely nothing, and especially when that nobody's been held accountable for that. That somebody did this to her and they're not being charged for it. They're not. There's no consequence to it.
Yeah, once again, I encourage people to go to the Facebook page, Leslie Bill McCallister, and to look up the hashtag Justice for Taylor 22. Now, if we're people hearing this now and they're outraged, what can they do to help you?
Well, what we're asking people, a lot of the posts that we make, there's contact information on there. Now, the contact that we've listed, FDLE is one of them. They have pretty much a copy and paste response. They said they don't investigate agencies, they only assist. We've reached out and had people email Ashley Moody. She pretty much has a standard copy and paste response. So, she's the Florida Attorney General for state of Florida. So what we're asking people really to do is, the biggest thing is to share our post, her story. A lot of people have different contacts, and every day we wake up, our messenger is lit up with people that are wanting to help. If they want to email right now, the Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, because what we need to happen is this has to be taken out of the hands of St. Petersburg Police Department and assigned a special state prosecutor to look at this because of the allegations of corruption against the local prosecutor involved in this. If that doesn't happen, then we're looking to push this on the federal level and get the FBI or the Department of Justice involved, because we're not the only family that this has happened to. And as much as we want justice for Taylor, we want to be able to help other families that have gone through this or who may go through this in the future. So email the ones that we have listed, email the governor, demand justice for her. It doesn't have to be anything lengthy. Some people will ask what they should write. Just demand justice for Taylor. You can you can copy and paste something from our page and send it. But the exposure that she's received from all the shares from people has been really just unbelievable. That's what's going to get her case the national media exposure that we want. That's going to put the pressure on them. Everybody knows that's kind of where you're going to get the pressure, not from the local news affiliates here. So that's what we're asking people to do.
Yeah, that's how it came to my attention. A listener heard the story and sent me the hashtag Justice for Taylor 22. Taylor Anne McAllister. This is the parents, Leslie Bill McCallister. That's their Facebook page. Leslie and Bill, I know how difficult it is to come on the air and relive all this. And even days before, you're thinking, well, what am I going to say when I talk to this guy tomorrow? And the rest of your day, it's going to be with you again, too. So we really, really appreciate this. I'm begging the audience, don't take this lightly. These people really put their heart out for you here. We need to step up and help them and make these phone calls and send these emails like they're requesting you to do. And visit their Facebook page and help them build the group and the like page and stuff like that to bring justice for this beautiful girl. Leslie and Bill, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.